Day of June. Today's Erev Shabbat Kodesh Perasha Shelach Lecha Anashim Makam Hijaz. Today's class graciously sponsored by Victor Haim Mizrahi from Mexico. La'ilui Nishmat, his beloved father, Eliyahu Ben Lela Alav Shalom, as well as Eli and Orit Memun. La'ilui Nishmat, her father, Yoel Ben Leah Rokas Alav Shalom, and Hamavdil, for the Refuah Shelema of Moshe Ben Miriam by Ezekiel Yofi and family. So I was asked to speak a bit about the Perasha by one of our virtual, two actually, listeners. I thought that I do speak about the Perasha, but perhaps on a Friday, more direct of the Perasha. So I'll try to do that for a few minutes. So just I'm going to go through the summary of the Perasha. As we discussed, I think on Tuesday, Perasha Shelach is not a happy Perasha to a certain extent, due to the fact that regretfully contains the tragic incident of the Meragelim. And we know that that incident of the Meragelim, of the spies, changed the face of history, prompted the Jewish people to stay in the desert for 40 years, and it brought people to stay in the desert for 40 years, and it brought a side of Am Israel that regretfully we are paying the price still till today, as we know that this particular day of the tragedy of the Meragelim was actually correct on the day of Tisha B'Av, and we see as Rashi writes, quoting I think the Gemara that says, "Atem bechitem bechiyah shel chinam." You cry for no reason, I'll give you a reason to cry. Upon this, says the Moed Kol Hai, Rabbi Chaim Palachi, it says that a person should be careful not to cry throughout life. And when I say crying, I'm not saying that occasionally something happens and the person cries, but crying in a personality mode means somebody that is a complainer, somebody that is mitlonen. And it says complaining has v'shalom, and the person has no reason to complain, says the Moed Kol Hai. The Malachim record this statement, and they say, you know what, let's see if this person really has a reason to complain. And if he has no reason, because he's complaining, we'll give him a reason to complain. That's the lesson that we derive, practical lesson in life. You know, I spoke to a dear friend of mine the other day, and we were talking about a Hatzalah project, and then we started to discuss the name of the Nesi'im of Am Israel, which is not mentioned in this week's Perasha, but is mentioned earlier in Perashat Naso. So in Perashat Naso, the Torah brings us the name of the Shevatim that offered. Korban offered was by someone named Ahira ben Ainan. Now I ask you a question, and especially if you understand Hebrew, what name means Ahira? Ahira means bad brother. Ahira. What name is it? You know that if somebody calls his friend Eved, Hayav Malkut. A person calls his friend Mamzer, Hayav Malkut. God forbid. You're not allowed to call anyone Eved, Mamzer, even a Rasha, Has v'Shalom. You're not allowed to.
Just for joke, you know, there's a Mamzer.
Okay, joke. The Halacha says in the Rambam, Asur lignov afilu bishok. Heavy. Why? Has v'Shalom. When it says in the Tomer Devora, I believe, that when you call someone, you know, he says, don't call someone Hamor. Why not? I grew up in the school Right? You remember that? How they used to call us in the Kitab? Hamor. So it says, Tomer Devora, the Moshe Cordovero, that when you call someone with a name that is not positive name, that name becomes part of the person. That's why many times you listen to Hachamim that say, Saddiqim, Saddiq, Beni, Ahai. Is he a Saddiq? He barely eats kasher. But you call him Saddiq, Yani, so the Kedusha of the Sidkud comes into the person. So it says, why this fellow was called Ahira ben Ainan? Is a great question. I'm 70% sure. I'm not 95, 70 because I was very quick on the phone. So let's dissect the word. Ainan, what is the meaning of Ainan? Ain. No Anan. Anan means a cloud. Ainan means Ain. Remember a few days ago, and somebody asked me a question about this that says, Ena beracha mesuya ela bedavara samui min ha'ain. It says blessing is found on things that are hidden from the eye of the person. The eye of the person, like it or not, can be ain tova or ain ra'ah. Can be good, okay, or can be wrong, can be bad. So that's what the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot writes. So let's look at it. And it says, Ahi means my brother. And it says, if my brother has it and I don't have it, Ra, because it's not good for me. You know, yesterday I was in the supermarket. My sister calls me from Brazil, video. And she asked me to get her something. Kosher market. She's telling me that in Brazil, with the lockdown and limited flights and not import-export, even basic items of kashrut or Judaism are missing. Literally. Pashut kipshuto. Because they were locked down for a very long time. Anyways, so I said, okay, I'm going to turn the video camera for you to look into the items that you asked. To know which one to get. Okay, so then I finished with that. I found what I was looking for, and then I keep walking. And then she suddenly makes a comment about how many varieties of kosher wine we have available. So then I said to myself, I think I'm going to stop the recording, not the video, not the recording, the video. Why? She said, no, I like it. She said, yeah, but I may be transgressing an isur of the Torah that says, lo tahmod. What's the meaning of lo tahmod? Do not desire something that is not yours. In other words, Hazita, she's 6,000 miles in Brazil, and I'm showing her the kosher wine and the kosher cheeses. You know, ha'ain ro'ah be'alev homed, the Gemara writes. So I said to her, you know what? I'm going to reverse the camera. I'm not going to show you anymore because I don't want that to happen. So it says that's what exactly says. Ben Ainan says, if I see what someone has, that means that I'm already looking at what they have. And you know, in English they say, the grass is greener on the other side. What does it mean, the grass is greener on the other side? That sometimes you look across the street from your house and you say, wow, what a beautiful home, what a beautiful driveway, what a beautiful landscaping, what a beautiful cars. Everything is beautiful, but guess what? You don't know what happens behind closed doors. Maybe he has a Gehinnom, God forbid, and you have a Gan Eden. Simple looking house, Gan Eden, Hamavdil. So it says, this was the greatness of Ahira ben Ainan. Ahira ben Ainan, also if you look at the word Ra, Ra can be read also Re'a. What's the meaning of Re'a? A friend. So the word Ra means bad. Re'a. Now, let's go back to them. Let's go to the parasha of today. Parasha Shelach. So we find the Meragelim. They come and they give the derogatory report. but I saw something beautiful quoted in the name of the Hatam Sofer, brought down by the Irat Hashem. And it says, we look at the Shevatims, and the Pasuk tells us, God testifies, Kulam Anashim Rashe Bnei Israel Hemma. They were leaders of the Jewish people. And then suddenly we see at the end of the Aliyah, Vayikra Moshe, Lehoshea bin Nun, Yehoshua, Moshe Rabbeinu does Shinui Hashem. The Gemara writes, Shelosha Devarim Meshanim HaMazal Shel Adam. There are three things that can reset the essence of the person, the Mazal. Number one, Meshane Makom, Meshane Mazal. You change locations, you move to a different city, the Mazal gets reset. In the world of business, you have merchandise, for example, that is not moving, that is not selling. You know what you're supposed to do? Relocate it. Rearrange it in the store. That's one. Another one, Shinui Hashem. God forbid, someone is in critical condition. What do? If nothing else is helping, what do? You do a change of a name. You add a happy name. Haim, Haya, Rafael, Rahamim, all these names that have a concept of life. And the third one, Shinui Hama'aseh. A person must have a change of action. Do something different. Whatever you were not doing before, do it now. Whatever wrong we were doing till now, stop doing it. That's the meaning of Shinui Ma'aseh, which is Teshuvah. So the question is then, if Moshe Rabbeinu did Shinui Hashem on Yehoshua, why was there a need to change the name? But wait, comes Rashi, and it says, you know why? Because Moshe Rabbeinu, says the Gemara in Sotah, Hitpalel alav. He prayed for Yehoshua. What does he say? Yah, Yoshiacha me'asad meragelim. May God save you from the plan, from the plot of the spies. I ask you a question. Question number one. What prompted Moshe Rabbeinu to pray only for Yehoshua? Number one. And if you're already praying for Yehoshua, why don't you pray for all of them? So there are a few answers, and I'll try to wrap this up quickly so we can continue with the class of today. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nihiyah v'baruch. Amen. So I think that there are two answers to this question. One answer is that Yehoshua bin Nun, who was the forefather of Yehoshua, Yosef HaSaddik. Lemate Ephraim Hoshea bin Nun, who was the father of Ephraim? Yosef. Okay? So what is the fear of Moshe Rabbeinu? Moshe Rabbeinu says, maybe Yehoshua carries the same DNA like Yosef HaSaddik. And what was one of the challenges of Yosef HaSaddik in his life? In the early days of his life, Lashon Hara. This is what happened with Yosef. With him, what prompted the brothers hating him? Because he will go to his father Yaakov and tell him, did you hear what Reuben did? Did you hear what Shimon did? Did you hear what Yehuda did? Every day there was a different Lashon Hara. So what Moshe Rabbeinu says, maybe Yehoshua, that is a descendant of Yosef HaSaddik, even though Yosef did Teshuvah, and we all know the happy ending, but maybe there is a sleeping cell of Lashon Hara in the DNA of Yehoshua. And maybe Yehoshua will be tempted to say Lashon Hara about the land of Eretz Israel. But what really prompted Moshe Rabbeinu to think this way? Yehoshua, we already know him for years. Yehoshua bin Nun is the student of Moshe Rabbeinu. It's not a nobody. Yehoshua bin Nun is the shadow of Moshe Rabbeinu. So perhaps we need to go back to last week's Torah portion, when the Torah tells us about two holy people, Eldad and Medad, which, by the way, according to some opinions, they were half-brothers of Moshe Rabbeinu. Same father, different mother. Okay? According to one opinion. Yes. When there was a divorce between Amram and Yocheved. Anyways, but the Pasuk says, Vaitnabeu b'machane. Suddenly, they started to give prophecies. And the Rashi comes and asks, what did they say? Very simple. They decided to stay away from the Goral, and the prophecy was, Moshe met, Yoshua machnis et Israel la'ares. This is the Gemara writes in Masechet Sanhedrin. They said, Yoshua will be the one leading the Jewish people into the land of Israel after the passing of Moshe. So now Moshe says, hold on a minute. If this is the prophecy that they gave, Yehoshua, because of the love that he has for Moshe, he is willing to sabotage the mission to Israel. And to do what? To give a derogatory report. Imagine yourself, you're trying to sell an apartment to him, right? And then I hear this, and I say to him, did he tell you that there is an assessment coming? Did he tell you that that unit had a water damage? So now I'm saying all these things. What exactly I'm doing? I'm sabotaging the operation. And that's what the Gemara writes, that this was the fear of Moshe Rabbeinu, that Yoshua will carry that statement from last week's Torah portion and enkai, as they say in Arabic, dafka, in purpose, he will say, listen, I don't want Moshe Rabbeinu to leave the world the next day. And by the way, if you read between the lines, this parasha, how unhappy it is because of the Meragelim, but what is a happy note from this week's parasha? That Moshe Rabbeinu's life was extended 40 years. Moshe Rabbeinu would have been gone by this week's parasha. So there was a benefit. Haz v'shalom, look at Moshe Rabbeinu. And Moshe Rabbeinu knew all this. And he says, you know what? I'm willing to sacrifice my life on behalf of the Jewish people, even though I'm going to be gone from the world, and my student Yehoshua will be the one leading into the land of Israel. I'm willing to forfeit. I'm willing to sacrifice myself for Am Israel. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu prayed only for Yehoshua, because all the other Shevatim had not really that level of connection with Moshe Rabbeinu. Of course they had, because they were leaders of each tribe. But they were the relationship between an ambassador and a president and a server in the White House of meals to the president. Who gets to see the president more often? The guy who works in the White House. Hamavdil. This was Yehoshua. Yehoshua has such a close relationship with Moshe Rabbeinu that Moshe Rabbeinu was afraid of him. And then the second question that was asked, why the Torah calls, one second please, why the Torah calls Yehoshua bin Nun? Why the bin? Why not Ben? So we need to remember, says the Irat Hashem, how the name of Yehoshua became Yehoshua. Yeshua's name originally was Hosea. But remember back in Bereshit, Sarai, the wife of Abraham, before she was called Sara, she was called Sarai. She had the letter Yod at her Olamdu. She says, Shinui Hashem. I need to change your DNA. I need to give you a new identity. So what did God do? He removed the letter Yod, right? and took it out. So it says, the Irat Hashem, that when the Yod was taken out, the Yod complained to God. I says, I don't understand. I was part of a righteous woman name. What I'm putting in the recycled bin, goodwill, is God says not to worry. You were the last letter of the name of a Saddeket, you will become the first letter of the name of a Saddik. So from Sarai, that Yod traveled to today's Perashah, Yehoshua. But the Sarai Yod, the Yod of Sarai in Hebrew, the Yod does not need a vowel to sound. It's not like an other consonant that you need to have a vowel. Sarai, I can say Sarai, and I don't need to put a vowel under the Yod. But so then if you're going to put the Yod in front of Yoshua, how are you going to call Yoshua? If the Yod has no vowel, there is no way to call him with that letter. So what did Moshe Rabbeinu do? He took the vowel of Ben, which is a segol, 3 dots. And what did he do? He took 2 dots to put it under the Yod of Yehoshua. So now you have only 1 dot left over. Now you have bin instead of Ben. De la Yod, de la palabra Ben. From the word Ben, Ben has 3 dots. So Moshe Rabbeinu borrowed 2 from Ben, put it under the Yod of Yehoshua. Otherwise, the Yod in... That's why you have only one dot, the Hirik, under the word Ben, and that's the reason why we call Yehoshua bin Nun. Hazaku Baruch. Excellent. Now, one more point.
So, if Moshe knew that your Meragilim were going to say Batya in Israel.
No, he didn't know. He didn't know. Oh, he was afraid only of Yehoshua bin Nun, because he knew that Yehoshua bin Nun could act in a way to sabotage the mission, because he wanted Moshe Rabbeinu not to die and to lead the Jewish people. The other topic that we discussed in this week's Perashah, there are a few more, but one more is the Mekoshesh Etzim. There was this fellow that the Gemara later on identifies him as Selofhad. And this person desecrated the Shabbat openly in front of Am Israel. And there are many questions. Why did he do it? So the short answer given was that he was Moser Nefesh. Moser Nefesh means he was willing to sacrifice himself in order to show the Jewish people the essentiality and the severity of the Shabbat. And the last part of the Perashah that we discussed for 2 days in a row was the mitzvah of Tzitzit that we discussed yesterday, the strings, the knots, the numbers, the color, etc. But I left something hanging in the air before, when the Gemara writes, Ena beracha mesuya ela bedabar samui min ha'ain. The blessing can be found on items which are hidden from the eye. The eye of the person has a lot of power, can be utilized for good and can be utilized for the opposite. So then somebody asked me then, so it means that based on that, you're not allowed to check your bank statement? Check your bank statement, because you need to do account reconciliation. But don't go to your bank every 2 seconds. It's like you're checking the stock market. I know that for some people, checking it every minute is halakha leMoshe Sinai. They have to do it, etc. Perhaps if you're in day trading, etc. But on the other hand, it's like somebody who is in the world of retail business, whatever left of it today in our days, okay? And you go to the register, it's the 2nd hour of the day, and you already sold $500. So then you go and you check every hour the register. And then you make a calculation. Oh, the first hour I did $500. At the end of the day, I do $4,000. At the end of the week, I do $20,000. At the end of the year, I do $300,000. In 5 years, I do $1.5 million. This is how the Yesirara works. And then suddenly, no customer walked in for the rest of the day. So, of course, you got to do your ishtadlut, you got to do your due diligence, you can check your bank statement, but don't make it every second, every hour of the day, unless really you do have a financial reason why to do it. And that's why Sephardic tradition is when we see something nice or something special, what do we say? Ben Porat Yosef. Right. Why do we do that? Because we say these words in order to avoid the Ain Hara, in order just to let it slide. And that's why you don't talk. If you do something, let's say you went on vacation, right? And you went to a majestic type of vacation. I'm not sure if that exists today. In the olden days, maybe. But today, things are different. But imagine yourself, you come back and you start saying, I flew first class, I stayed in this hotel, I took this ship, I took this boat. So somebody, how much money this person has or how much money this person makes in order to afford such a vacation. And that's why a person, there is a Torah prohibition that says, Lo tahmod. Lo tahmod in English means do not covet, do not desire what someone else's has. But you know that it says in one of the days of the Chok, and it says that if you look in the Sefer Torah, the word Lo tahmod, it's not written with a vav. So it means you can read it Lo tehamed. Lo tehamed in English means don't make yourself coveted. In other words, don't ignite envy against you. And that's why the Torah makes so much emphasis on modesty, right? Why? Because you don't want to attract somebody else's. What, you want people, after you told me this magnificent vacation, and I tell you, listen, I am sorry the way you talked, but now you have 4 people that are jealous of you. Are you going to be happy to hear that? So this is an automatic reaction that happens, and that's why it says, Beracha, keep away from the eye. Don't flaunt. Don't flaunt. Don't function in a way, right? Don't function in a way that Haz v'Shalom, you attract the Ain Hara against the person. And that's what the Tosafot, I believe, says that the person many times is responsible themselves for the Ain Hara. Not because of the people only, but because of you. If you suddenly come to pray and you empty your pockets and you put your wallet and you put your money and you put your watch and you put your pen, you put everything, but you don't have pen, pashut, wallet. You show heket, you show say for what? For what? Says you're attracting yourself the ain. Okay, let's go quickly. Just sorry. A very brief message on Shabbat. Later on in the next few weeks, the Zohar, I believe, will be discussing more the incident of Selofhad. But the Zohar Kadosh writes, and it says that a person, as we discussed this in the past, a person needs always to be the one to be welcoming the Shabbat instead of the Shabbat welcoming the person. Which, Baruch Hashem, in the summer, it's much easier to be ready to welcome the Shabbat. Sometimes in the winter, when Shabbat is very early, sometimes we are against the clock. But the Yetzer Hara always, even in the summer, finds situations before Shabbat somehow to delay, etc. So it says the Zohar Kadosh, and it says that what does it mean, preparation of Shabbat? So it says preparation of Shabbat is not limited to I took a shower in honor of Shabbat, which everybody does, Baruch Hashem. But it says overall, the Zohar says la'aroch hashulchan, to set up the table in honor of Shabbat. And Baruch Hashem, our Eshet Hayils already have everything down packed. There are people that prepare the Shabbat table already from Thursday night, without putting the wine, obviously, too early, or the bread, but they set it up. And there is a family which I knew many years ago that already by Wednesday morning, they set up the Shabbat table. I know. Friday morning, Friday noontime, perhaps if you have a lot of guests, etc. And the Zohar Kadosh writes, which is interesting, that the Ben Ish Hai in this week's Perashiot, Perashah Shelach, the first and second year, talks about kelipot. Kelipot in English means shells. Usually, when we say the word kelipa, if it's about food, it means the peel. The peel. For example, the peel of the banana, it's called kelipa. The peel of the pomegranate, it's called kelipa. Kabbalistically speaking, kelipa means the negative of the positive. So the fruit is tasty, sweet, but you need to remove the shell in order to see the true essence of the fruit. So the Zohar Kadosh writes and it says that the Yetzer Hara, many times, again, wants to sabotage the Shabbat by inserting the Tum'ah into the Shabbat. The question is, how do you insert Tum'ah into Shabbat? Shabbat is holy. So one of the answers is not being ready for Shabbat when Shabbat starts. And that's why he said before, the person needs to be the one that welcomes the Shabbat instead of the Shabbat being the one that welcomes the person by the candles, by the Saudah, by the Shulchan, etc. And it says in Zohar Kadosh that, interesting enough, we welcome the Shabbat with fire, which is what? Hadlakat Nerot. We light the candles in honor of Shabbat. And when we finish Shabbat, what do? We also turn on the fire. The fire. What's the relationship between fire and Shabbat? So one of the explanations Zohar Kadosh explains back in Perashat Vayakhel that there is the fire of Kedusha, the fire of holiness. It's a pasuk that says, Esh tamid tukad ala mizbeach lo tichbe. The fire of the neshama must always be active, beautiful. But then there is a different fire that demonstrates something negative. And this is the fire of Gehinna, the fire of judgment. And that's why the pasuk writes back in Perashat Vayakhel, Lo teba'aru esh bechol moshevotechem beyom haShabbat. Do not ignite the fire in any of your dwelling places on the day of Shabbat. The Peshat, the basic explanation of this verse means simply don't turn on fire on Shabbat, correct? That's why we have the hot plate, we have the crock pot, whatever you have, etc. for Shabbat. But it says much deeper. It says, you know what the meaning of this pasuk? It says, avoid anger on Shabbat. Because anger, to a certain extent, is the brother of fire. Which fire? The fire of argument. And that's why Ramban, I believe it says, Heveboreach min ha-mahloket keboreach min ha-esh. Run away from argument, from strifes, from disputes with people, like you run away from fire. What happens if you see fire approaching? You still watch, you run away. Hamavdil, when you see that type of situation also, run away, don't get involved. And that's one of the messages also that the Zohar Kadosh says, that a person needs to make sure that the fire of argument and the fire of anger does not pay a visit to the person on Erev Shabbat or Haz v'Shalom in Shabbat proper. The last message of the day, and then we'll finish the class in the next 3 or 4 minutes, talks about selecting friends. Having friends. Having friends, I think, is important. The Mishnah writes in Pirkei Avot, Haver Tov, have a good friend. But the next Mishnah says, Haver Ra, from a bad friend. So the question is Haver a good friend or a bad friend? Haver comes from Lashon Hibur. Hibur means to bond. So a friend becomes attached to you. So the question is, what type of friend is he? Is he going to be a friend that is going to influence you in a positive, in a good way? or Haz v'Shalom, anytime you want to do something good, he's going to be the voice of saying, no need for what, nobody does it, etc. So it says, כשתשאל, it says, when you're going to try to develop a relationship with someone as a friend, it says, שאל מי רעהו, find out who are his friends. It's like sometimes people call me, they tell me, Rabbi, I want to move to Florida. This question happens weekly. Now, for the past 3 or 4 months, I already have 2 interviews today, families looking to move. Yes, many. That's why there are no apartments. And that's why prices went up.
Deal.
Huh?
Like in deal.
Yes.
Deal, forget about it, sky high.
Forget about it. Deal, you can't touch deal.
Brooklyn.
Anyways, Brooklyn is, But anyways, so one of the first questions that I asked them is, who is your rabbi? Which knis do you go to? Let's say they tell me they come from, let's say, from Mexico or Brooklyn. Which knis do you go to? No, I go to Lawrence Avenue. Okay. Which should you go? Deal Synagogue. Oh, Hacham Nahum. Okay. But sometimes they tell me names that I have to Google search to find out, what shul is this? What type of synagogue? Who is the rabbi? And more or less, you're able to understand the person. So in a way, it says the Sefer Hasidim, the same thing you need to do with your friends. Make sure that you always surround yourself with good influence, with good people. Also talks about the concept of the person, when they speak, they don't just talk, haki, talk and talk and talk. It says the opposite. כשתדבר ביום, when you speak during the daytime, הבט סביבותיך, look around you, והיזהר בדבריך מן הכותל שבאחריך, and be careful because there is somebody listening to your conversation. So who is this listening? It says, הכותל שבאחריך, the wall behind you. That's what it means, אוזניים לכותל. The walls have ears. Like we say, eavesdropping in American law, Hamavdil, the walls are eavesdropping for centuries, for thousands of years. It says, you know why? It says in Gemara, Ki yamut adam bekishlon leshono. To stumble and to fall for mistakes of the tongue. Yani sometimes everything is wonderful, everything is beautiful, but then suddenly I said something out of line, something not correct, etc. And what happens? All the good is like I asked the kids the other day. Remember we discussed the topic of Shem Tov, of acquiring a good name. And we asked the question, how long does it take you to earn a good name? A lifetime. And how long does it take a person to lose a good name? 1 second. You understand? And that's part of the message of the Musar of today. So we wish everybody to have a Shabbat Shalom. We'll resume the recording Be'ezat Hashem Sunday. I'm going to be out of town next week for a few days. But Be'ezat Hashem, I will be very nether, giving the class live via iTorah.com and one of the rabbis. But Sunday morning, very nether, I'm here. I'm flying after the class. Okay? Shabbat Shalom Mevorach. And we say Tizkela Mitzvot.
No, be careful.
Oh, thank you so much.
I don't know if you can take it off.
Yeah, no, I'll fix it.
Okay, make sure.
Tizkela Mitzvot.